Diablo 4 just got its biggest news yet. We're also going to talk about a ton of powerful upgrades that are going to be used late heavily in the endgame, as well as some other features that fans have been requesting and hopefully will be there by launch. We're also going to briefly talk about the live stream video and some of the new upcoming beta stuff. However, I know a ton of videos have already covered basically everything with that, so it'll be very brief. But let's just get on to it. What's up, world? We're back again with another video. Today we're checking out all things Diablo 4. So let's first just talk about the most powerful upgrades, or at least what they're considering build-defining upgrades. And the reason being is there's some confusion on if these stats are additive or multiplicative. And there's actually evidence on both sides realistically, so we really don't know. These could actually be insanely overpowered. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about the glyphs. Now, they went over this very briefly in the live stream, and it was kind of in the later half. They talked about this legendary glyph system, and that essentially for every 5 intelligence purchased within the range, you deal a plus 3% increased poison damage. Things of that nature that seem to be almost multiplicative, and the damage seems to scale. So while you're at level 1, 3% seems to not be that big of a deal, but what about at 15% when it could be 12% poison damage, plus the radius increases to cover even more nodes? We could be talking about 6 to 8 intelligence nodes in that range. And if that's how it works, if it's multiplicative, then that's a 72% to 96% increased poison damage from one glyph, which on top of everything else, let's say you have a 200% aspect on your weapon, another 50% from another attribute, to then have that in 72% or 96% additive or multiplicative, again, we don't know what it's going to be. Still, both of those being the case seems like a pretty insanely high stat. Now, someone did point out that when you look at how many damage nodes you can have, plus aspect, plus gear, and the total pool of damage is going to be huge. So 70% will only end up being equivalent to a 10x or 15% damage increase. Now again, this is with the additive method and not the multiplicative. Now someone else pointed out, again, there's a lot of discussion around this stuff, that the damage stats get added in the same total damage pool except for vulnerable damage, which adds to a 1.2 vulnerable damage multiplier. So the critical damage, critical chance, attack speed, and vulnerable damage are the best stats because of this, and there are some glitches which give those stats. Now, someone else again pointed out another subsection to it because they looked at the Paragon board and a lot of statistics here that we'll go over very briefly. But then they said, I wasn't sure, but you could be right on the glyph scaling like that. I thought they just increased the range and the power because of the nodes they freed from. But if you see the current description of the exploit, for every 5 strength purchase within a range, you deal 2% increased damage to vulnerable targets. So there are a lot of weird things here with this stat, and I'm going to have this page down below that kind of outlines exactly what glyphs are. It's kind of like a wiki page. It lays out both glyphs and sockets and kind of showcases how everything is going to be in the game, at least percentage-wise. And they also do say that glyphs can be leveled up by entering some particularly dangerous dungeons. Leveling up glyphs extends the radius of the effect, allowing each one to draw power from or impact the power to even more tile. Now, as you look here, there's kind of a graph on what the different type of glyphs kind of will look like, and you can see showcased that we do have something at level 3, something at level 8, and something at level 15. And you can see that the radius of the actual tiles will be increased per the level increase. And this one, for example, at the medium range, level 8, will be for every 10 dexterity within the range, you'll deal 13% increased damage to vulnerable targets, grants 40% bonus damage to all nodes within that range. So you see here, these percentages keep getting pushed out, and again, we don't know if these are multiplicative or additive. I assume that with how many of them that there are, it probably will be additive. However, it doesn't take away for how powerful these upgrades will be, seeing as you can tell that it's also increasing other nodes within this little glyph range, which is then also getting added to everything else. And the magic nodes have some relatively rare affixes like damage increase to crackling energy, something that I didn't really use on sorcerer, but I heard people did have a really good time, or at least they like the build a lot with the crackling energy. So seemingly other builds are probably going to have some of these rare nodes and rare affixes to also apply to other things. Also to mention that some nodes are actually glyph sockets, allowing you to affect nearby nodes with additional bonuses. And there are about 10 rare nodes per board, sometimes even more depending on the class. They did say you need to plan this very carefully because it will be more costly to unlock nodes as you progress deeper into the Paragon boards. They also do mention that the legendary nodes are incredibly powerful class-based bonuses that exist rarely on the Paragon boards. So yeah, essentially trying to get through the Paragon boards and get these glyphs and get through all of them is going to have to take a lot of planning. This seems kind of like the PoE stuff that people were looking for, which actually really does excite me because I know a lot of the stuff with the endgame, people weren't really happy with the skill tree tree, and I know kind of myself too, I thought the skill tree was a little bit lackluster, especially for some of the classes like Necromancer. And Necromancer played great, but it just like had only one build to go off of. The rest kind of seemed pretty lackluster. Whereas Sorcerer actually had a lot of builds to work with, and I hope that they can kind of flesh out all the classes to where at least those seem to be seemingly playable. Otherwise, we will have some type of class disparity amongst the whole thing, and that's never fun, especially with like an MMO, ARPG sort of thing. You really want to see a nice diverse amount of classes amongst everybody. That's probably enough to talk about the glyphs and the Paragon board and the endgame stuff. Quickly jump over to some of the people that are requesting certain features with Diablo 4, hopefully by the time that launch comes out. And one of the main features here is actually the disconnect and requeue priority that World of Warcraft has, and I'm surprised that Diablo didn't have it during the beta. Now, I do hope, at least for the full game, or at least for the game release, that we do get some sort of disconnect priority, because this is not fun to disconnect from the game and then it had to be set back to the queue. We already know that launch day is going to have some of the worst queue times, and if there's a way like World of Warcraft, I will have another video on how to kind of skip the queue like I did with World of Warcraft Wrath of the Lich King. So if there is a way with Diablo 4, be sure to check out that video. Maybe there will be one, maybe there won't. I'll look into it with this current beta to see. I probably doubt there's going to be anything unless you can sit on the character creator screen before the servers go live. However, I would be sure to, the day of launch, I would be sure to restart your computer, have everything set to go, get it all, make sure that it's running right, at least for that day, because maybe there won't be a disconnect requeue priority, and if there isn't, you're going to be going through a long queue, and it's probably going to be much worse than what beta was. Now, briefly, we're going to go over this Server Slam beta just very quickly. Now, this beta will run on May 12th to the 14th, and the servers will begin at 12 p.m. PT, 3 p.m. ET, and 8 p.m. BST, and as well as 2 p.m. CST. Again, I'll have a time converter down below if none of yours were in there, so that way you can figure out exactly what time. I also do believe it's 8 p.m. UK time, just to have as many as I can out there for you guys, so you kind of know exactly what times that the servers will start. They did also mention that couch co-op, crossplay, and cross progression for all platforms would be enabled. Again, very, very nice to see it, that we have the cross progression and the crossplay. A lot of games have been kind of back and forth on that, which is a little upsetting. Think back to like Dead Island 2, I love the game, but I just wish there was crossplay, because PC player base is always a little bit smaller, especially when it's primarily promoted for the Xboxes or the consoles. Now, they did say a lot of the feedback from the beta has been incorporated into this build. I think last build was like 0.8, so hopefully this is like either 0.9 or closer to 1.0. You can try out all 5 classes right at the beginning, so we don't have to wait till the next beta weekend, or like we did with Necromancer and the Druid. However, this time around, the beta cap will be at level 20, and that's when you're also going to have to try to get Ashara down. Because if you do defeat Ashara after reaching level 20, then you will actually unlock a mount cosmetic, and they did say it was like this little trophy thing. However, looking from it, I thought it might have been a trophy in your house, but no, this is actually attached to your mount, and I'll showcase a little picture here of exactly what you're going to be getting if you hit level 20 and you defeat Ashara. She will spawn every 3 hours on May 13th, and her last appearance will be on Sunday, May 14th. Those times are 9 a.m. PT, 12 p.m. ET, 5 p.m. BST, and 6 p.m. CST. But that is about cover for today's video, and if you like to like and subscribe, and until the next one, deuces.